Hello friends, if you have a function and if you want to gauge the performance of that particular function, so how do we do that? There are several ways we can do that and we will cover all the ways in this lecture. The very simple and easy method is using the time command from the Linux or Mac shell. So first let's look at the function. This is a very basic function which is defined with the definition of test, and then there is a variable str1 that's initialized to empty string, and then what I do is I will take a range from basically from 0 to up to 10 million, and I will add that string to each other. So if I run that function, I will run like this. So now let's run this function in Python 3. You can do the same in Python 2 as well, but since Python 3 is more prominent nowadays, so we will run it in Python 3. So it will take some time and it will give the output back to me. So it took some time and it has given the output. Right now I'm not printing anything, so it's not displaying anything in the stdout, but it has executed. Now if I want to know how much time it has executed, so if you are on Mac or Linux, you can run the time command, and the time command will tell you basically how much time it has taken to execute. So basically you will see here there are three things: real, user and system. Most of the time you will look at the real parameter, so it took around 3.8 seconds to execute the entire thing. User and systems are different things. Systems are like how much time the system has spent, the operating system or the kernel, to execute this, and user is how much user context time it has taken. But in all probability, if you look at the real time, that would give you almost the accurate time, but not the very realistic time. So if you have a running time of 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 15 seconds, this would not make much difference. You can live with this. However, there is a different approach to solve it or to run it from within the code. So how do we do that? So there is a module called as timeit. So we'll say import timeit. This is a module, and what you have to do is you have to say timeit, and you have to write the name of the function which you want to test, and this should be in double quotes. You see the double quotes, it has to be in double quotes. Now by default this timeit accepts the command line arguments or command line statements to execute. So this test within the double quote will become just a variable, so it will not be able to understand that. So what you have to do is you have to write a setup like this, setup function, and in the setup you have to say from __ main __, and we say import test. So when you run this script, the script will run in the context of main. So there will be a main method defined. Even if you don't define the main method, by default if you are running, that will be defined. So from the main method you will have this method called as test. You will import the test method, and you have to give one more important argument which is called as number equals to 1. Now if you run with this, it will give you something like, so we don't need this now, so we will remove that. It will give you some variable x, and that is basically the time. So if I say print x, it will give you the time. So let's run this and see the time. So the time it has already given, again given the same, almost same, 3.83 seconds. If you run it multiple times, it will give you the same time. Means there might be slight difference in terms of seconds or milliseconds depending upon the CPU load at that moment. So it gives you the time. So that's second way of dealing with the things. Now there is one more way of dealing with the things, that is called as using the time module. So there is a time module in Python, and time will give the time since epoch. So what you do is you say n1, which is a time at a starting time, and you will say time.time. So it will give you the current time since epoch, and you do the same variable, you take another variable and you make it to n2. This is a new time since the epoch. So between n1 and n2, whatever time you spend, you will spend in executing the function. So you will write the function here, and the function name is test. So what will happen now, if you subtract n2 to n1, that will give you the time it has executed. So if I say n2 minus n1, this will also give me the time. So now if I run that, it will give me the same output. So 3.8 seconds. So n2 minus n1 gives 3.8 seconds. Using the user command also gives the 3.8 seconds. Using this will give you slightly more accurate. So if you are dealing with very accurate timing, I would say use timeit. And if you can live with raw time, which can vary by some milliseconds, you can use the time method. So it will also give you the same output. So now let's run that. So we will get the output from the timeit as well as the output from the time model. So this is timeit will give you 3.8 seconds, and 4 seconds is given by time, and 7 seconds which you see here is given by the overall system time, because 4 plus 3 the system has spent, because it is running 2 times, right? Once it is running this and another it is running this. The time command from within the system will give you the entire time from the first line of the code to the last line of the code. So that's why it's giving 7.9 seconds.